Hi, everyone. Welcome again to our monthly webinar. My name is Dr. Azuma. I'm the host and moderator of this platform. I'm so excited to be here today, to be around each of you. I'm just so excited. The topic for today is waiting to be maxed. Imposter syndrome. We're going to be talking about imposter syndrome because imposter syndrome is something that a lot of us struggle with. But before we get started, let's go ahead and just review certain things. All right. Again, my name is Dr. Azuma. I'm a board certified obstetrician and gynecologist. I'm a public health professional, community health educator, and social entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Healthy and Uplifted, and recently founded Elevating Her Mind, and the co-founder and president of Love Your Menses. I'm also a doula, a certified life coach, organizational consultant, blogger, professional speaker, and author. So I'm excited to have you guys all here. Just a quick statement. By participating in this event, even on Facebook or YouTube, you grant permission to Healthy and Uplifted to use your name, image, or voice in any of our electronic, print, or multimedia publication. So please notify us if you do not want to be included or filmed. Okay? Disclaimer. Please note that the information provided here is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional, medical, or psychological advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Healthy and Uplifted as a company is not a licensed healthcare provider. So, information provided here is just to uplift you and to help you, but it's just informational. So, if you are struggling with other things, please seek help. Okay? If that's what you'll gain from this talk, please seek help. Views, languages, and opinion expressed by the keynote speakers or the panelists do not necessarily reflect that of Healthy and Uplifted. So let's quickly go over the agenda. We just love to be strategic and what's the right word? And organized. So we've done the welcome remarks, we've done the housekeeping rules. Now the next thing we'll do will be the reflection, then the introduction of speakers, and we'll hand it over to our master keynote presenter. And then we can have some interactive Q&A as well. Then we're going to wrap up and do a vote of thanks. All right. So starting with the reflection, what I know. So imposter syndrome is what I know and what I think other people know. It's like a big circle, right? It's like, what do I think other people know? And reality is what you know is greater or equal to what other people know. But we'll talk about it shortly. So before we get started, I just wanted you to reflect on this. Have you ever thought that you were not the best candidate for a job? Like the job wasn't handed down to you. Like you worked hard to get there. Like you went through the first round of interviews, the second round of interviews, and the third round of interviews, and you got the job. Have you, even after that process, going to that job and feel like you're not the best candidate? If that's you, today we're going to talk about it. It's really imposter syndrome. The second reflection is, has your failure in life hijacked your future? Right? Like, I feel like sometimes we're not taught like failure is part of the process, right? Like, whenever you're learning something new, imagine a little child, a toddler learning to walk. The toddler falls and it's okay. But those of us in the professional world, I think they've made it seem like when you fall, you should remain down. And when you stand up, sometimes you stand up with pain. Sometimes you stand up with a baggage. And that baggage can hijack your future. That's imposter syndrome as well. And the last reflection is, are you sometimes nervous that someone might discover the truth about your credentials? I mean, I'm not saying you falsified your credentials because we have those people. We're just talking about those people that their credentials are there, but they still feel inadequate. So today, we're going to be talking about it. We're going to help you unmask that if you have that. All right, so let me introduce you to our fine keynote speaker. I'm so excited to introduce Fola Kayode. She's a PhD candidate So she's going to be Dr. Fowler soon. I'm so excited. She's my leader. I just appreciate her. So Fowler is a native born from Brooklyn, New York. Due to her military assignment, she relocated to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and then she finally moved to the DMV area. While she was in Fayetteville, she attended Fayetteville State University, where she obtained her Bachelor's of Science in Psychology and a Master's in Social Work with a concentration in children and families. Fola is currently pursuing her doctorate in healthcare administration. Ooh, she's going to be so good. In the same time, she's working in the fields of social work as a therapist in her community, on councils, as an advocate. She's a public health analyst for the federal government, even in her sorority, and she still serves in the military. She's also a health coach. She's certified under the Duke Certified Integrative Health Coach, and she owns her own health and wellness company. Her motto is the purpose of life is to live a life full of purpose, derived from Philippians 4:13. I love it. So you guys, I'm excited to introduce Fola. The next person is Adriana Washington. Oh my goodness, Adriana Washington is a licensed clinical professional counselor. She earned her undergraduate degree in psychology from Morgan State University. Hey, Morgan State! And she earned her MA in forensic psychology with a concentration in juvenile justice at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology in DC. Adriana's primary focus of research is self-efficacy of African American women in STEM. She's also explored the relationship between transracial adopting among single females. Adriana is currently the clinical program director for Sandstone Care Residential Teen Rehab and works as a clinical therapist at Unstock Counseling LLC in Laurel, Maryland. She has found a passion for working with youth in residential treatment centers, victims of interpersonal violence, and youth diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Please join me to welcome these two phenomenal speakers. We had three people, but one of them is sick. We wish you the best, and we hope that you will join us in the future. I'm going to hand this over to Fola. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your panel. I'm delighted to be here today and to speak with everyone. And just one small point of correction. I'm not still actively serving in the military, but still working with the military and veteran population as a whole. So just want to put that out there. But thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the rich discussion. As you mentioned, many of us have and probably are currently still facing some form of imposter syndrome, something that affects everyone in one way or the other, and not necessarily as the imposter where someone is purposely faking or pretending to be something, but also in the sense of sometimes maybe looking to do more, not thinking you're good enough. There's a sense of some sort of self-doubt in there at times, and a lot more, which we'll see through the presentation today. So we're going to go ahead and push through the slides and address other questions. So today we're saying, okay, what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is defined as a physiological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. However, those of us who have ever identified as imposters of the syndrome variety are not intentionally deceiving others. We just feel like we don't know what we're doing, and we consequently assign guilt to those feelings of incompetence, feelings of conflict between self-perception and the ways others identify you, right? How we think we are versus how others may see. We might be doing good at the job. We may say, okay, why am I in this job? We may think people are in our family sometimes, and we'll go into the causes next, but some of the reasons why people come into contact with this, sometimes it's because of family expectations, sometimes societal expectations. When you look at this slide here, it just shows you, it kind of sections off pretty much who faces imposter syndrome, who experiences it. So the cause, again, imposter syndrome is likely a result of multiple factors, including personality traits such as perfectionism. I must do this way. It must happen this way. Family background, family expectations. Sometimes families place a high value on achievement. Sometimes different cultural backgrounds, ethnic groups, where maybe it's your education is placed high, what type of job is placed high. Some people feel like I cannot excel if I'm not doing a certain thing, if I'm not at the top, if I'm not supervising, if I'm not. So all of those coulda, shoulda sometimes puts a lot of pressure on an individual. So the chart just shows that everyone experiences it. So I want to go to kind of what we can do. Yes, so this slide here just talks about talking it out, talking to someone about it, expressing it maybe to a clinician, a therapist, a counselor, a coach, to help you recognize those feelings associated with the imposter syndrome, and then create new behaviors to help you get past them. Okay, when we talk about breaking the silence, sometimes shame keeps a lot of people from fessing up. It keeps people from feeling maybe fraudulent, knowing that there's a name for these things, and then sometimes alone, it's difficult for them to free themselves from the thought. So just breaking silent is pretty much what it's saying. It's just giving us an opportunity to speak about it, talk about how you're feeling, separate feelings from the fact. Is this true? Is what I'm thinking about myself correct? Is that adequate? One of the things there that we like to speak about or we think about is that there's times when you feel stupid, right? It happens to everyone from time to time. And sometimes we realize that just because we may feel stupid doesn't mean that we're stupid. And we have to remember that. Recognize when you should feel fraudulent. If you're one of the first or few people, whether it's in a minority group, in a workplace, sometimes it's natural for you to feel that you don't totally fit in. Sometimes people, because of age, you may feel like I'm too young to be in this position, but you're qualified, you're educated, you're experienced. So instead of thinking about self-doubt as a sign of your ineptness or your inability to be in that position, sometimes you have to recognize that it's just a normal response as an outsider. It's a normal response to being in a place where you may not feel as comfortable. Okay. The other one is just to accentuate on the positive. Sometimes we don't think of ourselves to know what we're doing, or you may think that you're not doing enough, but focus on the positive. That's one of those things when we think about a positive mind. It's about mindset, right? What you say is what you'll become. And that goes, we can talk more about that at a later point, but perfectionism can indicate a healthy drive to excel, but the trick is not to obsess over it and not to obsess over everything being so perfect. Just do a great job when it matters the most without persevering over over routine tasks. Forgive yourself when the inevitable mistake happens, because we're all going to make mistakes at one point or the other, and that's okay. Developing a new response to failure and mistakes making. So Henry Ford, as we're all aware of, he once said that failure is the only opportunity to begin again. Is only an opportunity to begin again, but this time more intelligently, right? If we don't fail, how will we do better? If we don't fail, how will we do it again? Instead of beating yourself up over this and being a human being or blowing up maybe on a project, do what professional athletes do and glean and learn from that mistake and just move on. And it's okay. It's okay to move on. It's okay to make a mistake. And that's where some of the issues kind of come into place with how people become and begin feeling a little bit more of an imposter and have the syndrome. Write the rules. You are in charge. If you've been operating under some kind of misguided rule and you're saying I should always know the answer, or you have this thing of never asking for help, start asserting your rights. Start asking for help. Start recognizing that It's possible to be right, but you can also be wrong as the next person and just ask for assistance. There's nothing wrong with asking for assistance. Sometimes people allow themselves to get so consumed under, I don't want people to know what I'm doing. I don't want people to know that I don't know, but it's okay. And one of the things that I think about sometimes at work, when people ask me different questions, if I don't know it, even if I don't want to say, okay, I don't know, I'll say, okay, well, I don't have that answer for you, but I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. I'll find that answer, because I'm a person that likes to find out. I like to be more solution focused. So whether I have it or not is not really the issue. It's I'm going to find it for you, as opposed to making something up, as opposed to beating myself up for not knowing, because there's no way that we're going to know everything. Develop a new script. Your script is the automatic mental tapes that starts playing in a situation that triggers your imposter feeling. So this is something you want to prepare in advance. When you start a new job or project, instead of thinking, for example, wait till I found out or have an idea for what I'm doing, everyone who starts something new feels kind of off base in the beginning. That's natural. And like I mentioned before, you may not have all the answers, but just give yourself opportunity to find those things out. Visualize success. Okay. Do what professional athletes again do. Sometimes just spend time picturing yourself making a successful presentation calmly, posing the right questions, look at seeing and talking yourself through this. This is going to be great. Everyone's going to enjoy it. It's going to be beneficial. Some of these things you want to prepare in advance and say to yourself. It's kind of like affirmations. I'm going to do great. It's going to look great. And then reward yourself. Reward yourself. Break the cycle of continuously and continually seeking or dismissing the things that you do right. Reward yourself, validate yourself. Validation sometimes helps outside of seeking from other people's approval. Do it yourself. And one of the things that a lot of times that I dislike and I put here at the end is faking it until you make it. No, you don't want to fake it. You want to now kind of look and say, okay, well, I'm not going to fake it. I'm going to, instead, you want to consider not winging it as a proof of, okay, I can do this, I can't do this. Learn what other high achievers do and kind of view it as a skill to say, okay, I'm going to learn it. I'm not going to fake it. It's okay. The point is, if we continue to fake it, then we'll never really get to a point of where we actually realize and other people realize that we don't know it. And the truth is, in some cases, and this is more of an imposter side of things, people will realize that you don't really know. People will realize that you're faking it, or you're winging it, or you're saying something that that doesn't make sense or doesn't seem ideal. So just one of the things that I have here is just don't wait until you feel confident to start putting yourself out there. Sometimes the courage itself comes from taking some of those risks, changing the behaviors first, and then allowing some of the confidence to build. But in the process, you're actively pursuing and educating yourself so that you do get those acquired skills to perform in the way that you want to perform, in the way that you should be performing. And then when you don't know, again, ask people, seek resources, seek support, seek services. Okay. So that's that slide. And here is just a little illustration that I pulled. It just talks about some of the different types. We have the perfectionist, we have the superhero mentality, we have here our the soloist that kind of keeps to themselves, the person that thinks that everything they do, they must be an expert in. And, we have our natural genius here. I know that in one way or the other, a lot of those that are here on the platform today has probably experienced one or two or the other. And it's not to say that it's a bad thing, because sometimes people think imposter and they think, okay, someone that's purposely trying to trick someone else for maybe their own personal gain. They think, okay, someone who's intentionally doing that. But the truth of the matter is, when we think about imposter syndrome, it's really not the same. It's sometimes people beating themselves up one way or the other. And we have to act from a place of love and not fear, and kind of work towards love, work towards being better. And again, not faking it until you make it, but more so facing it, right? Facing whatever challenges, whatever obstacles you may have to overcome. Um, some other things, you have to ask yourself again, as I mentioned before, is this thought through? Embracing your own personal successes and just being compassionate, showing self compassion to yourself as well. A lot of times people are hard on themselves, and when you're hard on yourself, it causes another set of problems. How can I give myself the grace to get through whatever the situation is, whether or not, if I don't know it, it's okay. It's okay. And I think, as we're talking through a little bit more, we'll have an opportunity to discuss this a little bit more, because there are some other points, but I wanted to definitely key in on some of those highlights or those key areas to really give everyone the opportunity here to kind of understand what it is and to really see it as something that is not uncommon. It's not something that we don't all deal with. All of us, and I'm sure the other panelists has also experienced this in one way or the other, because this is a common thing. But the key to it all, or the key to getting through it, is knowing the steps and giving yourself a little bit more compassion and not beating yourself up. So those are just some of the areas, some of the topics, or some of the things that I wanted to say today and share with you all. So thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Afola. Okay, I'm so
I
impressed.
try to be quick.
No, I'm so impressed with you. Thank you so much. Fowler is yeah, a very good friend of mine, and this is our first time like talking this in depth about imposter syndrome. So you did very well. I'm proud of you. Fowler, you did say something that I agree with. You said imposter syndrome is common, and the International Journal of like Behavioral Health, I believe, states that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is so common. Do you guys know the statistic of imposter syndrome amongst like African American women or men? Because I feel like the data might be higher. So Adriana, can you
I don't
go
have
ahead?
yeah, I don't have a
Yeah.
specific number
Mm.
to correlate with our culture. However, it definitely would correlate with some of those experiences to naturally have some syndrome going into especially leadership spaces where they might be minorities, or being first in their generation to do something, or first in their family to do certain experiences where they might not have examples. There's definitely a higher threshold to have, some of those experiences to be exposed to imposter syndrome. And especially in a generation where you are the first, and like, or you might be a soloist, or you might be a natural genius, like in your family you might have been praised for being a genius, or and then when you make that transition to that real world and you see that, wow, a lot of other people have that same skill set that I have, and having that transition, would say like a lot of my like late 20 clients like transitioning young adulthood definitely have that struggle, and especially a lot of the minority clients that I do work with, I definitely do see that oftentimes. And I know I definitely had that struggle coming out of undergrad, and understanding that transition into the real world and my career field.
Wow, thank you so much.
And
Oh, go ahead, Fowler. Please go ahead. Go ahead, dear.
yeah, I was just thinking to what she said also, as we're thinking when you mentioned like family and just different ways that, family backgrounds and just different things, when we think of different cultures and some of the pressures that is placed on people to excel, and when I think of some of my own personal experiences, being of Nigerian descent, my family, that education was always a big thing. You have to excel, you have to get, why only a bachelor's? No, 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 you need a master's. No, 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 go further, go further. I'm like, but some professions don't require that, right? But that in itself sometimes puts that extra pressure on us, and then when we see that we're not doing a certain thing at times, if it's really not what you want, then we have that debate, that's where some of the self-doubt comes into place. And we think that maybe we're not doing good enough when we really may be. And then social media, I think social media plays such a big factor in this, especially right now, because everyone wants to show themselves, the glitz, the glamour, the finesse, right? That new song, and it's everyone's trying to be more or show more than what they really are when they may really be struggling. And we don't know what people are doing, right? Some of these people are having imposter syndrome over real life imposters,
Mhm.
and it's hard to really sometimes get people to understand that, but it's something that and also speaking with people in the past, that we can't believe everything we see, and we have to really be okay with ourselves and the successes that we're making, and knowing that we're adequate enough, um, without seeking approval and validation from it to everyone else, right?
Mhm.
Wow,
So,
thank you so much, Fola, for chiming in. Fola, you said something I think that is so pivotal. I remember when I was in medical school, right? I've heard my colleagues say, fake it until you make it. But you changed it. And you should own that quote. You said don't fake it, but face it. Can you
mm.
expand what you mean? I'm serious. I want you to create a t-shirt with that, or I'm going to take it.
No,
Yeah.
it's so funny because I think for a lot of we've all heard that, right? Oh, fake it till you make it. Oh, just wing it. You go into a presentation. I've been there. It's like, oh, the boss calls and says, okay, this is what you need to do. Okay, they're not really gonna know what I'm talking about, so I'm just gonna say some things that just probably sound good, and you think that it's okay, right? But the truth of the matter is, no, we shouldn't fake it. We shouldn't just continue to wing it, right? We should continue to face it, say what we're sure of, and be able to say that I don't have that information. And I think that's one of the things with Adrian. Hopefully, I'm saying that correct. I remember you just mentioned too when Dr. Berry mentioned the percentage, you don't know, right? I don't have those numbers at the top of my head either, right? And we could have just said, or you could have just said, yeah, that's correct, but you didn't. And I think that that's something important that we have to say is, okay, facing that. I think that was a perfect example, of saying, and perfect way of showing to people, no, we don't know, you know,
Yeah.
we don't know everything, and it's okay to face that, to say that I don't know it, to get that information back, for those that are seeking the information. So
Right.
I think that when we say facing it, I think of, yes, facing it, being able to say that I don't know it, being able to seek the additional information, being able to own the things that I know, and not own the things that I don't know, and that's okay.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that definitely speaks to the fact that culturally, a lot of times, our validation comes from like having, romantic partners and family partners, but also the other part of that validation comes so much from our career areas and our career space, and we feel like that's a constant space where we need to have that validation come from. So that imposter syndrome feeds like if I don't know that information, then oh, they're going to find out that I'm not supposed to be here and that I'm going to, lose some of that self esteem that goes along with being where I'm at. And so knowing that it's okay to say, yes, I don't know that information, I can find that out, and also still be where I am because I still have the information and the knowledge that I do have. Me not knowing a certain information doesn't take away from the wealth of knowledge that I do have already.
Wow, you guys, do you think imposter syndrome is a product of our society? Like, okay, you guys, we're all clinicians here, right? You guys are therapists, and I'm a physician. Oh my goodness. I cannot imagine an obstetrician coming to me and telling me they don't know something. Like, it's a problem. It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
So, how can we balance being honest,
So
and
I,
still, yeah, go ahead.
I can use this example. So with my IT guy at work, I joke with him all the time. I'm like, "You're not a real IT guy. All I ever see you do is Google." And the one day he said, "Well, as a clinician, do you not Google like DSM codes sometimes?" And I'm like, yeah, like I don't actually know the code, like I know the criteria off of my head, but if I need the actual code, and he's like, well, I do the same thing. Like I don't, he's like, I know what I need to look for, I know where I need to get, but sometimes I need to Google that video to like know how to put that wire together. And I'm like, okay, fair. So like, yes, I know the information, but do I know the code, the specific dot, where to go, where? No, sometimes I do need that assistance. And sometimes I have to say, like, oh, no, I don't know that. And especially as a clinician, and when I was in school, DSM changed while I was in school. So that was like a big thing that happened in the middle of there. So we're like, oh, we learned everything on an axis, and now that's gone. So there's are things that conceptually I'm like, oh, that's a little bit different. And having to realize that school did not teach me everything. I think that was the biggest thing that I learned when I finished school and got my license. I was like, oh, I feel like I should know this, but school did not teach me everything in the practical sense of now I have to go and actually learn how this looks in the field. I'm sure definitely from a medical standpoint that is different. Yes, if a doctor is going to tell you, but from my clinical standpoint and working in a residential field, like it was totally different from book work to practicing.
Fola, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no,
Is
I
there
mean,
pressure?
yeah, no, I agree. And everyone expects you to know everything, right? Like you're the therapist, you're the clinician, you should know. Doctor, Barry, you're the doctor. Because sometimes I've said that to my doctor and she probably looks at me like, I'm like, but you should know. Like, I don't know. She's like, well, nothing. Or, they may say, oh, everything is fine. All of that. I'm like, well, I don't feel fine. So I need you to tell me something, right? But the truth of the matter is, we don't always have all of the answers. And I think that that's okay. But sometimes what I mean to is, okay, well, let's think this through together, right? Let's talk this through. Let's see what this could be, before now giving some kind of maybe definitive answer, because the truth of the matter is whatever we say, people are going to hold it as truth, right? They're going to hold it as the word. So like, when you mentioned with the IT, we expect that they should know everything. When we call, certain places, and they look at us that way. I've definitely been looked at that way as well. And that's usually my response is, let's think this through together. Let's talk this through. Let's look into this a little bit more, because sometimes through talking it out and digging a little deeper, we find those answers. And sometimes, when I have to switch onto my coaching side, you find the answers yourself, right? So you're not now seeking for me to find the answer for you. I can't hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. So my question for you guys, right? We've touched on like the society itself causing us to be products of, or causing us to have imposter syndrome. What about our own experiences in failure? Do you think failure has a big role too in creating imposter syndrome? I've heard someone say this, that your previous success and your previous failure can hinder your future, right? So if you like rely on the fact that, oh, I was summa cum laude in high school, you might not study hard or move forward, right? Because you're like riding in that glory. Similarly, if you focus on, oh my goodness, it took me, 2 tries to get my GMAT score so that I can get my master's, right? That can also affect you. Like you go to work and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm not that good because I took my GMAT multiple times. I'll tell you this. I started helping medical school applicants. And I was really shocked when I started reviewing their criteria. Because when you talk, I'm going there. When you talk about affirmative action, people always assume like minorities are the ones that needed help in terms of getting in, which is a lie. Because I'm reviewing records and I'm seeing people that are phenotypically white that did not get 4.0. You know what I mean? And they're applying for medical school and they get in. They didn't get a perfect score on their MCATs. They didn't get 4.0. And it was like a big awakening. I was happy that I did that, right? It was a big awakening because I was like, I did not assume that even white people needed help to get to medical school. It's not all of them were 4.0. because they don't talk about them, like how they struggle to get in. Like they really don't. They always, and Black people are so quick to share their own struggles. Like I see on LinkedIn, I got a 2.0, but now I'm in Harvard. Like we're always quick to like share that story, which is good. But there's some white people that got 2.0 that are in Harvard too. So my question is, when do we divorce our failure from our
Mm,
progress? Thank you.
yeah. I think one is, how did you learn to conceptualize the failure? Like, what were you taught about failure even at a young age? Were you like taught to embrace the failure, or were you, taught that failure was a derogatory thing and you need to deprecate yourself until you get to that next level? So I think it's what we're taught about it from a young age, and how we internalize that from a young age. That we take it as a self-esteem thing, because the reality is you're never good at the first time. Like you're never going to be good the first time. The first time you pick up the baseball, you're not gonna hit a home run. I mean, you might. That might just be your God gifted talent, but most of the time, you're still gonna have to work on that to keep getting the home runs and keep that skill going up. So when we learn to divorce the failure as it is something that is negative, rather than taking on it something that is positive. And I think Fowler said it in her presentation, and saying as it's an opportunity to grow in a positive direction. The failure is, okay, yes, I did not go in the direction that I was expecting to, but now let me go back and analyze to see, okay, where's the area of improvement that I know for going forward. So if we're taking the failure as a dig at our own self-esteem and our own abilities, then it's never going to be helpful. But if we take it as an ability to look at, okay, here's my opportunity for growth, here's my opportunity to launch, then we're able to use it and move forward. But it's the way you conceptualize it and the way you perceive it for yourself.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. I mean, Paula, what do you think about failure and imposter syndrome? I mean, to me, my failures are hard. I've not accepted
Mhm.
it. I know the right lingo. It takes work to accept your failure.
Mhm.
So Paula, chime in, tell us what you think if failure or previous
Mhm.
failure makes you
Mhm.
a victim of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it wholeheartedly. Just thinking back to some personal experiences where I felt like I failed, in an area, and just thinking of one specific, it's always that, what will others think? What, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm the mistake. Maybe I did this, but the truth of the matter is things happen, right? And no one really knows the story. Everyone's not going to know everything. And we have to, you said, you mentioned sometimes you're forcing your failure or yourself from that and not seeing it as you are the failure. Yes, you had a situation or a circumstance or whatever the case may be that failed, but that doesn't define you. That doesn't define me. Yes, I failed at this, but really does not make me a failure. And one of the things that, Henry Ford mentioned in that quote that I shared earlier is that it's an opportunity to do it again, right? It's an opportunity to do it better. The idea is that I'm not going to fail at the same thing over and over. I'm going to learn from it, hopefully, right? And then move forward, do it better, do it different, be intentional about my new approach so that I don't fail at the same thing a second time. Does it mean I'm not going to fail in something else? No, it doesn't. But I'm at least now learning from this situation or whatever it was that I failed in.
Wow, thank you. That was good. You guys are so excellent. So my next
Mhm.
question for both of you is, when do you seek help? Miss Washington, when do you seek help? If you're struggling with imposter syndrome, when do you seek help from a therapist?
Yeah, I think, well, always, but I think where people kind of, the line is, like, there's always a moment where we feel failure and we feel that we've missed the mark, and at some mark we've all felt some level of imposter syndrome, but the syndrome piece means that it's continuing to happen over and over again, and it's showing up in an area of your life where you're willing to risk your own mental health, where you're willing to risk your own physical health in order to, release all your boundaries in order to meet this higher level of expectation that you have for yourself, or where you think you need to be in order to maintain this image. And when it's, bleeding into other areas of your life or taking over your own well-being, I think that's where you seek help. And hopefully you recognize it before it gets to the point where you're at a point self-sacrifice everything. But when you realize that you're even making these little self-sacrifices in order to maintain an image, or noticing that in every area you feel like I'm not doing enough, that you recognize this might mean I need support, even though on paper I have all the criteria that I need.
Fola, can you join in, please? And tell us when you think people can need help. Fola is not here. Oh, we lost her. We lost Fola. Okay. Washington is all yes. Washington, my next question is, what could happen if someone that is struggling with imposter syndrome does not seek help? What can happen?
I think kind of towards what I was saying before,
Mm-hmm.
they start sacrificing everything, their mental health, their physical health, those pieces of, life, work life balance start to deteriorate. Oh, she's back. Yay. And those pieces of your life start to deteriorate. And your self-esteem starts to deteriorate. And a lot of that real image of who you are is gone, because you're so caught up in the image of who you think you should be, if that is not addressed about what you are currently.
Wow. Okay, Fola, two questions for you. The first one is, when should someone seek help? That was the one that
Okay.
Miss Washington addressed. The second
Hmm.
question is, what could happen when someone fails to seek help? Thank you.
So, when should someone seek help now? Right
Yeah.
now, especially now after this webinar, and you're more aware that it's a common thing. It's okay. We all experience it. Us as clinicians, professionals, whomever, we all experience it. I think that when we first think of, when we accept it and we realize what's happening, it's probably a little bit easier for us to seek help, because then we've realized, sometimes, we've heard the saying, you don't know what you don't know, because
Yeah.
you don't know it. So we don't
Yeah.
know. But now you're a little bit more accountable, because you've now been told. You're now aware, and that this is something that happens. Um, and then what was your second question?
What happens if we fail to seek help?
So if we fail to seek help, I would say that we go now into a downward cycle, downward slope. Now it now impacts us in a different way, because I think that's where we now go into some anxiety. People have issues with anxiety, depression, and some of these other mental illnesses come into place. And it's actually classified with some of the things that on the DSM, when we look at some mental illnesses or mental disorders. So I do feel that it is important to seek it now. And if you don't, you can run a risk of being affected in other areas of your life, in your other areas, when we think of like wellness and health, overall health.
Thank you so much. All of us here are coaches. I mean, the similarity I have with you guys is I'm a coach, but you guys are both coaches and counselors, which you guys do a great job at. I've worked with medical students that it's kind of too late, like one particular client of mine was a lady that is very intelligent. She got into a medical school. Her first year, she had very good support. There was this minority faculty member that really worked with her, encouraged her, because I feel like the mind is important, right? Like, if you see
Mhm.
failure in your mind, no matter what you do here externally, there's no major outcome. Again, I'm a mind person. I started elevating her mind because I think everything starts from the mind. So this
Mhm.
girl was doing well. The faculty left the program. So she was left without a support. She was like the only minority in her class, at least. She right now dropped out of medical school. So I remember I was talking with her, and while we were having that conversation, I said, honey, you know, you're really smart, right? You almost made the dean's list your first year. There's no how for you to be a top student your first year, and then second year catapult downwards. You know, like go downwards to that point. And then she wasn't using drugs. You know, there wasn't like major factors, changing factors in her life that could have attributed to her failure. But her failure started from, you know, not having enough encouragement, significant imposter syndrome, not feeling like she's qualified to be in medical school. At that time, when I became involved in her situation, I kind of think it was kind of late. So my question is, where could we have started teaching minority students to separate themselves from their failures or the comments by the environment? The environment keep telling us we're not good enough. Let the truth be said, which is a lie. Um, so like when do we start teaching minority people, you know, like divorce yourself from your failure. Failure is okay. You know, not okay, but if you have it, use it as a stepping stool to learn. So when do we start teaching them? Do we start teaching them in high school, middle school, at home?
I think,
I would say at young, right? Right.
yeah. Right. I was gonna say day one as early as we
Mhm.
can.
Mhm.
Teaching where that formative years comes from and those self-esteem shaping years come from home and the village that raises that child.
Mhm.
Really
Mhm.
building that self-esteem is where that comes from, and understanding that like mom and dad don't have to be all of that support. It could be mom and dad and aunts and outside
Mhm.
mentors and people in the community, dance team leaders, whatever it is, to build that support and that self-image. I think one really interesting thing, when I first moved to Maryland, especially in PG County, being, as affluent and black, beautiful people that it is, outside of that, I knew a lot of people that had lived there their whole life, and outside of PG County, being in a area where the white was the majority, they felt uncomfortable. Um, Vice versa, where I grew up, where I was the minority and the white was the majority, so it didn't really bother me. And coming to PG County, I was like, oh, this is nice. That was a nice change. But in that space where there was a lot of things where I did not feel uncomfortable being in a space full of, minority, being the minority and majority white people being there. But it took a lot of my parents and the time that they took to make sure that, one, we were still around people that looked like us and we saw people that were successful, but all of the words and affirmations and things that they put into us, and making sure that we took the time to say those words. Um, and so that came from definitely just the home life that I had, building that self-esteem. And that doesn't mean that I still had to work through building my own self-esteem and things of that nature. But um, because I had some of that built so young, I think took me so much further when I had to learn to be in a lot of different spaces in my career space.
Wow, Fola,
Yeah.
your turn, please.
Yeah. No, just as you're saying, as you're young, as you're, from day one, and letting children know it's okay, right? A lot of times, a child does something, and you may want to reprimand them or say, okay, this is, you shouldn't do that, but sometimes I think, without enforcing maybe negative behavior or something that they shouldn't have done, but it's okay, do it this way. Let's do it again. It's okay. And then maybe saying so that they don't just see it as okay, bad, 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 to the point of where they're scared to fail, right? As a child, you know, um, they're scared to make a mistake. They're scared to say that this is what I did, but no, it's okay. Let's do it this way. And I think about my niece sometimes, and she'll do something and she'll do it wrong. We're like, who did that? She'll say, Tommy did it. Like, but were you supposed to do that? She's like, no. And then we're like, okay, well, let's do it this way. Okay, you were supposed to do this, but I think that, she's slowly gotten to grasp onto the idea that, if you make a mistake, or if it would, this, oh, this way, this way, and I'm just, just thinking about it. But I think just starting early to say, okay, sometimes you may make a mistake. It's okay. Let's do it this way. It's okay. Here's a better way, and just reinforcing that, so that when people make the mistake, it's not trying to run from it. Oh, I'm going to try to fake it. It's, I don't know. It's I'll find a better way. I'll find the solution. Okay, I'm good enough. I've succeeded. I do belong here. I am in this position because I am qualified, and all of these things, and reminding ourselves. And that's where sometimes I would say those affirmations come into place, and it's very helpful. I don't know if people have done vision boards and other things, but along from just the vision, I say also affirmations. That's one of the things that I always used to tell a lot of my clients was, do some affirmations, put those up. I am good enough. I'm fine. I'm successful. I belong at this job. I'm not too young. I'm not too, because it's something that we all go through. Just naturally they feel like, okay, what do you deserve to be here? Yes, I'm qualified. I'm skilled. I have experience. I belong to be here just as much as you, and reminding ourselves over and over, and reminding the youth, and the minorities or other groups that may feel like they don't, or they're not good enough, to say, well, I do belong here, and even in those neighborhoods, that you mentioned, Adrian, sometimes, you might be in a certain area where you kind of look around and everyone doesn't look like us, right? And it's okay. But if I'm working, I earned it. It's my money. You're not paying for. Why can I not have a house here as well? Why can I not serve on this board as well? I think it's just something that we have to own that success back. Like we mentioned earlier, um, we have to push ourselves. We have to tell ourselves over and over until it becomes just a force of habit. It becomes just natural for us to not really doubt ourselves and not really doubt our worth. So that's just what I wanted to share about that.
Wow, gosh, this was just an amazing discussion. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Just a few take home points is, remember affirmations. Remember to say, I do belong here. Own your success back. Don't fake it, but face it. Oh my goodness. I mean, this is just amazing. I really, really enjoy this. Hopefully, Fola and Adrian, we can do something bigger. Maybe we can do something for Love Your Menses, right? You guys, we can do something for Love Your Menses uh, in empowering our youth so that we can decrease the risk of imposter syndrome. For those of you that don't know Love Your Menses, please check us out. Love Your Menses is an organization that I'm the co-founder and president. I want to give a shout out to my co-founder and executive director, Bria Gatzing. Thank you. We started this organization in 2019 as a way to empower young girls. As they mature physically, we also wanted them to mature mentally. So we combined both menstruation and mindset. And we created this platform called Love Your Menses. It has become a global organization. So I'm very humble. But I think after this, I really want us to come up with a curriculum whereby we can decrease their imposter syndrome. Our girls do well, but we want them to even do better. I think the title of it will be I Do Belong Here. What do you guys think? I love that title. All right. Thank you so much again. So we're going to go back to our announcement. Israel, let's go ahead and go to our announcement. The next webinar, we do this every month, most months, is Getting Unstuck, shifting your mindset to overcome. So now we talked about imposter syndrome. Now we want to help those that are stuck, whatever the reason it is. We want to help you get unstuck. We're going to have phenomenal speakers again share how they got unstuck and how they moved forward. Save the date, April 24th, 2022 at 3 p.m. I talked to you about the new program I started. It's called Elevating Her Mind. It's a weekly fireside chat on Facebook where we just talk about our situation and how we overcame it. It's really good. Last week we had Dr. Amajoy come in and talk to us about colorectal cancer prevention for the colorectal cancer month, because we do believe in elevating her mind and also elevating her health. So it's really cool. Check us out. You can check us out on Facebook, Elevating Her Mind, or at Healthy and Uplifted. Again, I'm a coach like our two panelists here. And this is one of my clients. She says there were times where I felt unqualified and confused about my career path, but she empowered me and constantly spoke life and truth into me. At the end of our conversations, I always felt I left leaving so inspired. I'll always be grateful for her mentorship and the things she's done for me. This is Sarika speaking on my coaching skills. Please, 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 as a friend would say, I'm the product of the product. So if you're a coach, if you need a coach, consider me. I'm there to help you. All right, I've written 3 books. The Warrior Women Project, check it out. It's very empowering. Meyer learns about menstruation, and Jonathan and the hole in his shoes. These are the books I wrote a couple of years ago. There are some in the pipelines that will be releasing soon. But if you want to review or read more of my work, please check us out on Amazon. Like I said, we do have a YouTube channel. Right now, we've reached 1,000 subscribers. Yay! But we still need more. So if you are on YouTube, check us out and subscribe and give us a like, thumbs up so that we can get more people enjoying what you're enjoying. Again, thank you to all our participants, speakers, and planning team. Israel, you're the best. Israel is pre-med and she decided to take a gap year to work with us. Israel, I appreciate you. Thank you. All right, just quickly, our production team. My masterminder is Brianna Checheri. She's a second-year medical student. Itleen Peacock, she's a activist in Wisconsin. Israel Walker, my amazing intern. Nobu Undubisi Daniel, he's all the way in Nigeria, my creative designer. Alpha Kamara, my journalist. And Latasha Cleveland, my executive assistant. We are all here because we like to teach, we like to empower. We believe that if there's a problem, we can be the solution. So we are the solutionist. We love being and helping people, as Fola said. Fola, I want to call you Dr. Fola. Like, I guess, you're going to be a doctor really soon. Like, my tongue is itching. I want to call you Dr. Fola so bad, but I
I'm
wouldn't. But
affirming it. I'm claiming it. I'm ready.
oh my goodness. It's like in my spirit, I always want to call you Dr. Fowler, but I'm like, oh, she's not yet there. But you will be there in like next year, right? You will come back as Dr.
Yes.
Fowler.
Mhm.
Awesome. The sponsor again, Love Your Menses, Azuma Solution, elevates her mind and healthy and uplifted. I really want to leave you with this quote. This quote is from our speaker in Elevating Her Health, Dr. Rob Amajoy. He says something: taking care of your body is also taking care of your mind. I think that was phenomenal because, I'm so obsessed with the mind and I'm also a physician. So I was trying to connect them, and Dr. Amajoy just brought that connection. Like, taking care of your body is truly taking care of your mind, because a healthy body will allow us to have a healthier mind. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for coming. We're going to end the broadcast now. Thank you so much. Mhm.